Are your mixes stuck at the same level no matter what you try? Today I'm going to give you 5 easy mixing tips that'll help you break through that plateau, mix faster, and get more professional, consistent results every time. You don't want to miss this, so stick around. Okay friends, welcome back. So in this video, I'm going to give you 5 mixing tips, some really cool things that you can implement right away, just like that. You don't need any special training to implement these tips, and these are going to really help you with your workflow. It's going to make your projects and your mixes way more consistent from project to project, and you're going to start developing, if you haven't already, your own sound as a mixer. These are super important, and you're going to get better results on the first pass every single time. So let's jump in to tip number 1. Okay, tip number 1 is something that you need to do before you even start mixing, and that is session prep and setup. Session prep and setup is something that sometimes takes as long as it takes to mix the song, and depending on the size of the session, it could take even longer. And a lot of beginners, what they do is they record their tracks or import their tracks from somebody else, they throw them in there any old way, and the next thing you know, they're throwing plugins on and they just start mixing, and they haven't taken the time to set up their mix and their session. I have an entire checklist of things that I go through to when I do a project every single time. If you want to see a specific video about that checklist, leave in comments below and I'll go ahead and I'll do that. But let's take a look quickly here in Studio One, and I'll just give you a couple of things that I do that you want to do every single time. And this is, again, before you start mixing. I think of mixing as 2 separate things. The first thing is getting my session set up, and that's kind of our housekeeping, kind of our technical cleanup work and our prep work. And then the second part is mixing. Everything from just color coding your tracks and using the same color coding system every single time. So like you'll see here in Studio One, at the top here, I always start at the top, and at the top of my session are always my drums, and they're always in brown. Then after my drums, I always do bass, right? Drums and bass right next to each other, bass is always blue. Then after that, I will typically do guitars, and my guitars are always green. And if I'm using acoustics and electrics, maybe I'll do different shades of green, but my guitars are always a green kind of color. Then I will normally do vocals next if there's like keyboards or if there's horns or something like that in my session. This one doesn't have that. I'll usually color those purple or some shade of purple, or percussion would be like purple as well. Then when I get to vocals, my vocals are always red. My lead vocals are always a darker red, and my background vocals are always kind of a more lighter shade of red, or just something that the contrast is a little different, so when I'm looking at my session, I can see it right away. And then as I said, down here we do have some synth tracks here. My synths will always be in purple. So by using that color coding system every single time, no matter when I'm looking at a session, no matter what session I'm looking at, or whether I'm going back and opening up a session from 2 years ago, I know exactly where everything is. That's one really big key. Another big key is making sure you name your tracks in a way that makes sense. So when you look at it, you can easily find what it is. And then also doing your fade ins and your fade outs and any kind of edit and cleanup work to those tracks. And I'm not going to show you how to do all of that in this video because I want to move through these tips. Again, if you want to see my full setup, just showing you how I set up a session, leave comments below. If we get enough of you that want it, I'll do that for you. But the moral of the story is session prep is huge. When you get everything set up and organized in a way that makes sense to you and you do it every single time, when you go to start mixing, you can concentrate on the creative and you're not thinking about the housekeeping stuff, and your mixes are going to come together much faster. So tip number 1, session prep before you start mixing. Hello friend, I hope you're enjoying the video. Hey, if you're serious about becoming a better mixer, then check out the mixingacademy.net. Every month you'll get a brand new set of multi-tracks and mix along with me step by step and learn the why behind every mix decision. You'll also connect with other mixers, join me for live coaching calls, and I'll personally give you feedback on your mixes each month. Click the link in the description below and check out the mixingacademy.net. Now back to the video. Okay, tip number 2 is something that I've employed years ago, and I think everybody should do this, especially when you're first starting out and you kind of got maybe a little less than a year under your belt, or even up to a year's worth of mixing, and you find yourself taking forever to mix a song. And what do I mean by forever? You have a session that maybe has, like in this session here, 50 tracks or so or less, and you're taking like 8 hours, 10 hours, 2 days, 3 days to mix a song. That is far, far, far too long. One one way that you can combat that and kind of get yourself focused, use your gut instinct, make your mixing decisions, EQ, compression, etc., and move on, is to use a timer. Whether it's on your cell phone, whether you get one of those old kitchen timers, those egg beater timers where you turn the dial, however you have to do it, give yourself a time frame on how long it's going to take you to not only mix the entire song, but to even break it down by sections. So on a song such as this, which only has about 50 tracks in it, 55 tracks in it, once it's all set up now, once it's all prepped, and that's separate, okay, that could take an hour or two. Just the mixing part, you should be able to mix a song like this, if it's recorded well, 2 hours. 3 hours at most to get yourself to where the first pass is done and you got it sounding really good, well balanced, and you have all your basic and EQ stuff out of the way. Doesn't include automation necessarily, but 2 to 3 hours. That should be the entire mix. It shouldn't take 3 days. So I would actually not only set a timer and say, okay, I'm going to mix the whole song in 2 or 3 hours, but then if you even need to go a step further, you can say, okay, what am I going to work on first? I'm going to work on my drums, for example. Okay, I'm going to give myself 30 minutes to work on my drums. Set my timer for 30 minutes and you go through. You listen to your kick mic, you make your adjustments, you move on. You want to use your gut instinct, use your ears, use your experience, and this comes with experience. The longer you mix, the more time you're doing this, the more reps you do, the faster it will become, but you want to make a decision, make a tweak, and move on. If you're struggling where you're listening for stuff and you don't know what to do, then that just means you need some additional training. And again, we'll talk about that towards the end of this video, how I can help you with that. But give yourself a timer. Time out your drums 30 minutes. Go to your bass and your guitars. Okay, I'm going to take 20 minutes to do my bass and my guitars. Okay, now I'm up to about 40, 45 minutes, 50 minutes. Then I'm going to take another 30 minutes or so to work on my vocals. Now I'm at an hour or an hour and a half, and then I'm going to work on my stints. Get my point? I don't want you to rush through things and be careless, but I want you to be aware where you just don't want to be listening to stuff and fiddling around and fiddling around and fiddling around. Will not only get you better, your instincts will start to take over, you'll develop better ears and more critical listening, and your mix are going to come together much faster, and you shouldn't be spending 3 days, 4 days, 5 days on a mix. That's tip number 2. Okay, tip number 3 is one that you've heard me say in other videos before, and that is limit the tools or the plugins that you're using in your system. We've all done this. We've all done this. We're working on one of our tracks in our session here, and we open up our browser, and then we go to our plugin browser, and we have to scroll through an enormous list of all the different things, and we go, what EQ do I want to use today? Or what compressor do I want to use today on this particular kick? And you spend more time looking through plugins in your browser than you do mixing. And you know what? Most of you's probably got at least 500 plugins on your system, and some of you have up to thousands on your system. I know students that have 2, 3, 4,000 plugins, and you know how many plugins most people actually probably use and how many you probably need? 12, 15 at most, and you probably find that you end up leaning back to the same plugins over and over again. You find your favorites and then you move on. So every so often you should be doing a plugin purge on your system and get rid of the stuff that you don't need, don't like, don't use anymore. I've done 2, 3 videos on that in the past, in the recent past. Again, I'll link those in the description box below. Limit your tools. Before you even start your mix, limit your tools. Say to yourself, okay, what tape machine am I going to use? What things am I going to use? Set up a mixing template for yourself where you have some of these things preloaded. And what I would suggest you do, if you find yourself using a different set of plugins every time you mix, for the next 5 mixes, I want you to pick no more than 10 plugins that you're going to use. Put them in a favorite folder in your plugin browser and only use those plugins and learn those plugins inside and out. 2 things are going to happen. 1, you're going to mix faster. It's going to help you with the timer tip, right? 2, your mixes are going to start to sound more consistent and you're going to become a better mixer. More tools isn't necessarily better, less is more, okay? So, tip number 3, limit your tools. On to tip number 4. Okay, tip number 4 is something I teach in every one of my courses, and I talk to my students about this all the time, and I don't care if you just started mixing today or if you've been mixing for 10 or 20 years, this tip you should be using every single time. It's going to help you in multiple ways using reference tracks. Everybody that's mixing should be using reference tracks. And you may say to yourself, if you've never heard me say that before, Uncle Dave, what is a reference track? A reference track is your roadmap to what you are striving for as far as the sonics and the style of mix that you're trying to create. So if you have an original song and there isn't a commercial release of that original song, you're mixing one of your original songs. Let's say it's a country pop tune, for example. You want to find a popular country pop tune by a famous artist that you like the sound of their mix, and you want to use that and bounce your mix as your mix is coming together. Compare your mix to that reference track. And what are you listening for? How is the low end on the commercial track? How loud's the kick drum? How loud's the snare drum? How loud's the bass guitar? Does the reference track have a lot of low end, or is it a little more thin? It has a little bit more top end. Where do the vocals sit in the mix compared to my mix? How loud are the guitars? How are things panned? Those kinds of things. How much reverb is on the lead vocal? How much delay? Is there reverb and delay? By comparing your mix to a reference track, you're going to find two things are going to happen. One, you're really going to learn to develop your critical listening skills, which is the most important thing as we have as mixers, are these two things on the side of our head. But two, you're going to get to understand very quickly and instinctively what a commercial release sounds like and how to get your mix there even faster. When you're not using reference tracks and you're just mixing, especially if you're in the learning stages, you're just mixing blind. It's like driving down the road with a blindfold on and you have no idea where you're going. You need to know where you're going, and using reference tracks is the way to do it. Now, I tell everyone you should have yourself a reference track plugin. The one I recommend here is right on the screen, and I've talked about this plugin many times on my channel, and it's in all of my training courses, by the way. This one is by Plugin Alliance. This is Adapter Metric AB. This is a fabulous, easy to use plugin. Everybody should be using this, so you have a way to compare your mix, and at the flip of a button, compare your mix to the reference track. That's exactly what it's for, and it also allows you to look at EQ curves, loudness, and all other kinds of things. So having a reference track tool is really important. So when you mix, I want you to start mixing with reference tracks. Again, search my archive for more detailed videos on this. And if you pick up any one of my training courses, we use this plugin and we use reference tracks and talk about reference tracks all the time inside of my courses. Okay, tip number 5 is something that if you're really serious about the craft of mixing, whether you're mixing on studio monitors, especially if you're mixing on studio monitors, or even on headphones, you want some sort of room correction to help you make sure that what you're hearing in the mix as you're listening and making mixing decisions is accurate. Now, especially if you're working with studio monitors, most of us are working inside of a home studio. Normally that's a spare bedroom in our house, or maybe it's a finished basement or something in our house, and we don't have the best acoustics set up for that room for mixing. It's not purpose built for mixing. You're usually in a spare room in your house, and the smaller the room, the harder this becomes. And what ends up happening is, if you don't have room correction, and let me say room correction / acoustic treatment in your mixing space, what you're hearing coming out of those studio monitors is lying to you. It's not accurate. You're not able to hear what the low end is really doing in the mix because the room is getting in the way and it's lying to you. And then you're making mixing decisions, EQ decisions based on what you hear, which is not accurate. And then you get it sounding really great in your studio, and then you take it out to the car, and what happens? It doesn't sound the same, does it? Either one of two things happen. Either it's very boomy in the car and you go, wow, the bass sounded perfect in my room. I take it out to the car, there's way too much bass. Or on the other hand, it's way thin. It's like, where'd all the bass go? That is the most common problem because the room has all kinds of deficiencies in it. So by using some room correction software like Reference ID by SonarWorks, like the ARC plugin by IK Multimedia, and there's others on the market, for a very small investment, you can get your room correction set up in a way so whatever you're hearing coming out of those studio monitors is going to be way more accurate, and then when you make your mix sound great in your studio, it's going to translate to other playback systems, and it's going to allow you to mix even faster because you won't have to be going back and forth, back and forth, and back and forth. Even if you're working on headphones, both of those companies make a software that'll take your headphones, the headphones that you have, it'll put an EQ curve on the master bus so your headphones sound more flat. So when you're listening to those headphones, you're making better mix decisions. Anyone that is serious about mixing your music or someone else's music, especially if you want to start working and getting some extra side money for your mixing skills, and even if you're just learning how to mix, if you can't hear what's going on in that mix accurately, you will never turn out a good mix. So using some kind of room correction software and couple that with basic acoustic treatment is really going to help you mix faster. It's going to give you more consistent mixes, and you're not going to have to do as many revisions. So we talked about 5 tips so far. I'm going to give you one more bonus tip. Tip number 6 is if you're mixing, we talked about plugins, limit your tools. Try mixing with channel strip plugins. Channel strip plugins is going to also help you limit your tools because you're going to have 4 or 5 plugins inside of one plugin, channel strip. And by using channel strips across all of your tracks, a couple of things are going to happen. Number 1, you're going to limit your tools. You're going to be doing everything inside of one plugin window, and you're going to be able to mix faster. Most channel strips today have filters, preamp sections, EQs. Some of them even have dynamic sections. Some of them also have saturation and de-essing in them, depending on which channel strip you choose. I've done some videos on channel strips here and my favorites. I'll link those in the description box below. Go check those out. But just pick one, API, SSL, Neve, any of those. Use a channel strip across all of your tracks and start mixing only using the channel strip and no other plugins at first. That's going to help you not only mix faster, but limit your tools. And the other thing it's going to do when you run all of your audio, all of your tracks through that channel strip, it's like working on a real console. It's going to glue the mix together and give you a sound that sounds more cohesive. That's another bonus of working with channel strips. So if you want to learn to mix faster and you want more consistency, one of the best ways to do it is work with channel strips. Check the link in the description box below and check out those videos I have on channel strips and pick 1 or 2 of them, go demo them and check them out. I promise you, once you start mixing with channel strips, you'll never want to go back to not mixing with channel strips. Okay, so there's my 5 + 1, 6 tips to helping you mix faster with more consistency. Definitely write those down on a little sticky note. Keep it near your workstation as a reminder. These things are really going to help you. So I want to thank you for sticking around till the end of the video. So as I alluded to a little earlier in the video, I want to give you something else for free. So if you've never been to homerecordingmadeeasy.com, go there. I have a free mixing course. It's worth $100. Download it for free. It's my gift to you for visiting homerecordingmadeeasy.com. And if you take that course and you really like my style of teaching and you want to learn more about EQ compression, mixing, mastering, everything from absolute beginner all the way up to a seasoned pro and everything in between, any one of my courses on my website, I want to give you a 25% discount coupon code. That coupon code is YouTube25. You put that in at checkout, it'll take 25% off any training course on the website. So until the next video where we talk about even more mixing tips, I've been Dave with homerecordingmadeeasy.com. Thank you so much for watching me, everybody. I'll see you guys in the next video.